Hello to all. I don't know if you can hear me. We are going to start that session on cybersecurity for ICIA. So for that session, hopefully if we're starting right now, you will have the opportunity and the chance, if you want to actually ask questions using the Slido system. You can just QR code what you see on the screen, and then you can get going. And this will help you to ask any questions when we'll have a bit of time at the end of that session to our guests, which are with us today. And just to start up the session, I have a chance. So my name is Guy Philippe Goldstein. I'm a lecturer at the School of Economic Warfare, an advisor to PwC, and also I've been participating with IFACI, the French chapter of the ECIIA. And we are lucky to have with us four esteemed guests, specialists in cyber, to discuss the topic of cybersecurity, which will be a sort of conversation coming out of the last copy of Risk in Focus 2025. And thus with us, we have a chance to have Valérie Shipman. Valérie is an IT and digital audit director at Renault Group. She's in charge of audit on IT, cybersecurity, and digital transformation. And she brings with her more than 20 years of activities in various IT topics in Europe, Asia, car manufacturing, as well as banking and financial services domains. Thank you, Valérie, to be with us. Also, I don't know if you've seen that on the screen, we'll have with us Deepinder Chabra, who's an associate director at Verizon Business Group in EMEA, leading cyber governance, risk, and compliance consulting practice for indeed Verizon Business Group. Deepinder is a Harvard-educated professional with extensive credentials such as MBA, CCISO, CISSP, CGEIT, and many others. And actually, Deepinder has been the previous president of ISACA London, and also council member of the Chartered Institute of Internal Audit. We're very happy to have us with you for the conversation, Deepinder. Also with us, Daniele Federici, and correct me if I don't pronounce the name correctly. Daniel, currently responsible for the global internal audit team at Landis and Gear, and he leads the IIA Switzerland Industry Experience RFA Group. Daniel is also a certified internal auditor. He has with him over 15 years of internal audit and consulting experience and holds a certification in control self-assessment, and he's been part of global internal audit teams in Italy, Ireland, Switzerland, and in the industrial, manufacturing, financial services, pharmaceutical, retail business segments, so wide samples of different industries. And last but definitely not least, we have with us Luca LaGuardia. Luca, you are the head of internal audit at Fabric, as an open finance fintech enterprise. You're a member of the Italian Internal Auditors and Associations Governance and Knowledge Creation Committee, and a member of the Cybersecurity Observatory. That will come very handy. And you also hold a degree in business administration from Milan Bocconi University. You have also many certifications, such as CIA, CFSA, and so forth. And you have more than 25 years of experience in auditing in the financial service sector, initially as external auditor for one of the big four companies, and then for leading international banks, and also the Borsa Italiana group. So again, delighted to have you here. And I'll just kick off with a few slides to actually present what have been the results, main results from this edition, 2025 edition of Risk in Focus. So maybe moving to the next slide. So first, what are today the top risks currently for auditors, internal controllers? The result is quite clear, as it's been the case since 2021. The first actually risk that any organization is facing is cybersecurity and data security. So if you decided to come to that webinar, you came actually to the most important webinar because it deals for auditors, because it deals with cybersecurity. If we move into the next slide, we'll see actually that if you look for risk-facing organization in 3 years' time, if you project out in the future, well, actually, cyber may seem to still be the number one risk facing your organization. At least that's what's coming from the survey. And also, very interestingly, you'll see that right before, and it's already coming this year out of the top 5, but digital disruption, new technology, and AI, which is a topic that we may speak altogether about, also comes up, out of number 2, quite close to cybersecurity and data security, kind of a statement that at the end of the day, lots of the control activities, audit activities today have to do with this new bizarre thing, which is the company as an enterprise, as a digital asset. And actually, when we look at how much time is spent for auditors and internal controllers, and that's the next slide, most of the efforts are also, and this is very stark here, so you need to look for the orange gold type bar. Most of the efforts actually also spent, top efforts also spent in cybersecurity and data security. And that's something that we'll talk about also later. Also interesting to see that this indeed may have become one of the important topics of the auditor. We'll have something else to talk about that later on. If we just take one step back, and that's the next and final slide. So the next slide. So this is actually coming from the Internal Audit Foundation. This is more of a global view. But one thing may be interesting to stress is as we speak about digital disruption, including AI, which is today number 4, which is projected to be number 2 topic of concern in the next 3 years. Well, actually, when you dig a little bit deeper into that very topic, what is the, for example, highest level of risk related to AI? Well, surprise, surprise, it's again cybersecurity. And also human capital, and we'll mention that also later. So net, all that brief introduction to state that at the end of the day, cyber seems to be today still the number 1 risk for companies, projecting out still the number 1 risk in the next coming 3 years. An important area for activities for the auditors, internal controllers. And even if you expand the scope into AI, you'll still find cybersecurity. That's a great thing because that's definitely what we're going to talk about now. And again, we can stop the slides and join the panel that we have today. Again, with, as I mentioned, Valérie, Deepinder, Daniel, and Luca. I don't know if you see me on screen. I'm trying to reach out to see the panel at this stage. I don't know if you hear me actually. Deepinder, Valérie, Daniel, and Luca.
Yes, we can.
Yes,
We can
Okay.
hear you, but cannot see you. Maybe it's just me.
Okay, well, I cannot, unfortunately, I cannot see you neither, but hopefully the audience can see us. That's the most important thing, I would assume. So let's try to actually make kind of a round around that issue of cyber and IT today as a dimension central to editing. When we did a little prep on that topic, I think Deepinder, you mentioned that today we may be entering a world where you cannot have audit activities without cyber and IT. So it'd be very interesting, perhaps starting with you, Deepinder, to expand a bit how much indeed cyber and IT activities seems in terms of importance for any auditors and internal controllers. And then we'll make a round with Valerie, with Luca, with Daniel, just so that you can, a bit express how much for your own activities, what's the importance today of cyber/IT for your internal audit department and internal control department. But again, starting with you, Deepinder, um, why this point of view? Why you say that today we're entering a world where you cannot have audit activities without cyber and IT?
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me opportunity to join this webinar. And when we are preparing for this webinar, I made this observation that we are entering a world where you cannot have audit activities without cyber and IT. And it's coming from the reality, a realization. I think every organization is facing now that there's no business operations within an enterprise that can be carried out without being underpinned by IT or digital state. Be it marketing, be it sales, be it logistics, be it reporting, financial reporting. Everything is, every business process runs on IT systems and has to be made secure so that the functions can carried out without any disruption. Confidentiality is maintained, and we can ensure and trust the transactions that are taking place on within our business environment using digital or IT state. And that's how important it has become that if you want to carry out any audit activities in any particular function, you will have to include cyber and IT as part of the overall audit. I have, seen that, if you're looking at auditing any particular business function, say HR or logistics, you will have to make sure that there are sufficient controls in place so that transaction can be trusted and information can be protected. And that is, I'm not surprised that that is reflected in the focus interest report, because that is a reflection of how dependent the organization have become on their digital landscape to support the business processes. And that's highlighted by, if you look at the introduction of new regulations by EU, for example, NIS2 and DORA, which are, again, forcing us to rethink our strategy, how we manage cyber and resilience within our state. And in a third line of defense and audit is part of that.
Right. Well, they're interesting. Maybe Valerie, do you want to, and we'll move into Luca and then to Daniele, but Valerie, on your end, how much indeed is the activities around cyber and IT important, very important, and how much do they make up actually, if you have a sense of that, of the workforce as part of the audit department, and the time spent also as part of the audit department, and the budget perhaps also?
So it's quite difficult to say, Guy Philippe, because actually now, as Deepinder was mentioning before, auditing any audit assignment now has a part of it that becomes that is on IT and cybersecurity. So it's not only about dedicated audits on these topics, but it's also about fully integrating these topics into standard work papers and making sure that all auditors have I would say, but we'll come back to that. I believe later have a minimum competencies, minimum understanding of these topics, because it's really a must-have. So it's not about how much we dedicate on this, and it would be difficult for me to answer to that, but I think it's become something that you cannot do without. And most of the audits that we do have cybersecurity or an IT dimension.
Very interesting. Okay, and Luca, and if on your end you can have some sort of estimates, I know it's very difficult, and also the interesting point here is that it needs to be now systematic. But if you have a sense of perhaps, I don't know, like the investments which are being made, or new expenses which are being made for cyber as part of the internal audit budget, just to have a sense of,
Yeah, thanks, Guy, and thanks to other colleagues. I perfectly agreed with what has been said before. In my opinion, but I work for a fintech company, so in fintech, for sure, IT and cyber are very important. Also because we have to provide to external customers that we are certified, like in PCI DSS or ISO 27001. But for me, so cyber is very important. Going back to the question of Guy, the team, how is composed? So 50% are IT auditors, but anyway, also other team members are prepared on cybersecurity or IT topics, because I firmly believe that now, especially at this time, we need to perform audits that are integrated between business and IT, but also IT part and cybersecurity is one of these aspects that should be covered every time. I just add one point, maybe the need to be educated, I say, as a team of auditors, but also to educate the others, I mean the company, the board of directors, in order that everyone understand and know very well the risk that is in place in case you are not protected from a cybersecurity risk. So the need to put in place all the measures to avoid this kind of risk.
Okay, very clear. And you said like 30% or 50%? I didn't catch
50%, 50.
50. Okay, well,
One out
that's quite a
two, yes.
statement. Very interesting. But then, of course, you're in finance, but still. And then, Daniele, for you also a bit same stuff. Happy to hear from you actually on your standpoint on how much is important this element of cyber
Sure.
and IT.
And also thanks to the rest of the group, I second what has been said so far. Lending Gear is also selling cybersecurity as a product, so I shared also during the roundtable. We have a strong second line of defense. We have a very large team, and we coordinate closely with that. So there is, obviously an increasing focus from the board of directors, from the audit committee on cyber, how important that is, how important is meeting the customer expectation. On the other hand, we coordinate with the second line of defense. Overall, I would quantify, my team involvement in cyber. I would say we allocate around 35% of our resources, directly to that. But I also repeat, now cyber is everywhere. So every audit we do, there are systems, there are digital infrastructures to be reviewed. So we have it as part of the scope in most of the audits that we conduct.
Okay, well, fascinating. Echoes of what all our esteemed guests also have said. I keep that very important line: cyber is everywhere. I guess I'll get my T-shirt with that. But beyond cyber, now one of the main topic that has been exploding for the last 18 months is the issue of AI. Evidently, guess we were about to talk about that, which is also one of the big topic, both inside the elements around cyber within Risk in Focus 2025, but also, as we mentioned, also a big topic in itself in Risk in Focus 2025. So let's start with Valerie. How in your organization have you dealt with that issue of AI. And then whoever wants to add on, please feel free. But Valerie, what has been the way you prepared yourself to this coming AI revolution?
Okay, so first thing is AI. An AI system is an information system. So first thing is it should be protected in the same way as any other information system. So we should look at the same things in terms of cybersecurity if we focus on that. Of course, there are other areas of risk in AI that are not related to cyber. But if we focus on cybersecurity, I would say the first thing that we need to remember is everything that we usually do should be applicable, like risk analysis, security by design, all these kind of things are applicable also to AI. But still, there are a few specificities that we can consider. Maybe first thing that comes to my mind is about the data that is used to train the AI. So that's if I take the example of Gen AI, generative AI, which I think is the most popular type of AI these days, or well known at least. So if I take this example, one of the question that I think may be specific to AI is that the training data that the system will use to provide answers, are we sure that this data, the users who are going to ask questions to the Gen AI are authorized to the information that they might receive in return from their questions? So it means that we should pay attention to these kind of topics. What data, what rights, what authorizations we have on that. Another point that I would mention, and that is something that we should be extra cautious on, is the use of AI to generate source code. This and develop applications. This is something on which we need to make sure we keep the proper control on the integrity of our source code. This could be something really worth looking at. And of course, there could be attacks to alter the behavior of the AI systems. So it's really important that when we have critical AI, we always have the human supervision. That's important, and also something which is in the AI Act regulation that has been recently put in force. So I think these are a few of the aspects that I would look at to prepare myself to audit AI, and especially around the cybersecurity risks. But I'm sure my colleagues have plenty of things to say too.
Yeah, I don't doubt it an instant. But yeah, indeed. But the issue of training data, the issue of getting being authorized to get the answer, which is a big one, actually, by the way. Beware of code that you may be developing because of AI. And the supervision, the required supervision. Talking about supervision, actually, and this is a question for the whole group. Do you have a sense that the issue of governance of cybersecurity of these new systems have been properly put in place? And I say that because there's been actually in the UK a recent piece of data from GCHQ, National Cybersecurity Center, mentioning that there may be some lapses around the issue of governance. I don't know if you want to I don't know, like Deepinder perhaps, or whoever. How do you see this issue of the governance of the cybersecurity of AI? Is it properly handled today, or is there still lots of things that needs to be done to set that up in the proper way?
Yeah, it's a very, very relevant question. And, what Valerie said about the oversight of the AI systems is very important. And from auditing point of view, you cannot have proper audit if you don't have AI audit, if you don't have AI governance in place. So I think having AI governance is very important. It's not only important for addressing the AI risk associated with cybersecurity, but in a wider holistic way. There was a study by, I think, Harvard Business School, which mentioned that AI projects, 80% of the AI projects fail to bring value to the organization. It's 3 times the normal IT projects.
Right.
And that kind of, I think, should bring home the point that AI governance is much more important, and its importance have been elevated to higher levels by, as Valerie mentioned, EU AI Act, right? And an EU AI Act makes it an obligation for organizations to manage risks with associated with adoption of AI, be it privacy, be it security, be it data protection, or reliability. And not only that, it's also forces organizations to think about how the bias will be addressed in the AI adoption, and a matter of ethics and safety. If you look at the risk level that are defined in EU AI Act, it is risk-based approach based on what is the level of risk associated with particular adoption on AI. And I think that's very important. And for organizations planning to adopt AI in their organization, and especially in the EU, because if you look at the fines associated with EU AI Act, they are eye-watering, up to 30 million or 6% of global turnover. But coming back to your point, I think there is a lag behind. I think organizations are lagging behind. They are running towards adoption of AI without having proper AI governance, and that's worrying. I think that's the same thing highlighted by the report you mentioned earlier, and that need to be addressed. As I said, AI governance, I think, will become foundational, not only to address the risk associated with the adoption of AI, but also addressing the risk of driving value from the AI projects within the organizations.
Yeah, correct. Fully agree. I don't know if Luca or Daniel wanted to add something on that point.
Yes, I perfectly agree with Deepinder. Another point that I would like to raise is the risk of misinformation with AI. So I think we need to educate people and ourselves to identify, for instance, deepfakes, AI-generated content, to understand what is true and what is not true. So this is the biggest risk, I think, in AI.
Right, the whole issue of what we may be calling deep fakes, what we see with voice cloning, what in a sense we would call social engineering amplified by those new AI means, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yes, this amplify this kind of risk. They probably before AI were not so big risk like now, because now maybe we can go further talking about this. So deepfake, for instance, are the biggest now risk, and we need to put in place AI in order to safeguard us from this kind of risk. Also to have a continuous monitoring on possible AI attacks.
Right, and then you're quite right. And by the way, indeed, we've seen an explosion of even like phishing emails, but much better customized at scale, let's say, because of AI. Are they going deeper on that issue, which to this day, at this stage, seems to be the one main problem actually posed in terms of cybersecurity with AI? What you mentioned, Luca, in terms of those new deep fakes, we could also mention voice cloning. We could mention better phishing emails. Are there ways, new type of exercise, new way to try to capture that risk, and thus as an auditor to make sure that those new ways are in? I don't know if anyone wants to take the lead on that.
Yeah, sure. I just make maybe one example about the fact that part that now are happening quite often this kind of issues. So there was a finance worker that sent out money, $25 million. Maybe you find in the internet was a news, I think, of February 2024. And this is why, because he received a message, an email saying that he have to provide this kind of money transfer to.
Yeah, Luca? Hello?
I have issue. Now you can hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can
better.
hear you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
better. Okay, probably have problems with the Wi-Fi. And I said that there was this finance worker who received an email saying that he has to perform a money transfer of 20,000 or 25 million euro. And he didn't, I mean, at the beginning, trust the email. But anyway, after that, it was arranged a Teams call with the CFO, with other colleagues, but everything was fake. So this is the big deep fake. And he was convinced by all the attendants to this meeting that he has to perform this kind of money transfer. So he performed 25 million euro money transfer without authorization, because in this fake call it was authorized to do this. So this is the first point. But also there is another risk if you are thinking about, for instance, maybe we saw in the social media the risk to see fake videos about guest star, about I don't know, maybe in the companies can be that you see your CEO saying something that is not true, but is just something built from scratch using AI. So in this case, we have to perform training awareness on these purposes, and especially to train people to understand what is true, and especially to recognize this kind of deep fake. Perform audits on access and authorization also is very important. Going back to the first case I mentioned, if you have to perform a money transfer such as big, like 25 million euro, probably you need to put in place additional controls. Not, I mean, a call with the CFO or with some colleagues is not enough. And second, put in place some, for instance, measures to identify which are real videos or digital sign on code. So this can be the main measure in order to avoid this kind of risk.
Right. So in a sense, put more controls and also evidently develop the awareness by, and make sure that there is actually an upgrade of awareness exercise and training in terms of cybersecurity that would definitely deal with those new type of threats, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone wanted to add on that.
Yeah, just sorry, go on.
Sure, sure.
No, I just wanted to say that, Luca made a very good point that they are, if you look at the social engineering and use of AI in what called wishing, kind of video deepfakes,
Yes.
there's that one part is that, social engineering is becoming much more sophisticated. It takes just less than 60 seconds for a user to fall for phishing email. And the incident that Luca mentioned earlier about a well-known compromise of Arup, where 25 million were transferred. Now, how do you deal with this, right? I think we have to go back to the mantra of trust but verify. I think that's what Luca was mentioning, right? It has to become a core and central of how we combat this menace of deepfakes. We'll have to make sure, as Luca mentioned, our staff is made aware and trained not to be just to be aware, but be much more vigilant. And we should also promote healthy level of challenging and skepticism. For example, if CISO or CEO makes a request to transfer money, we should be able to challenge. We should have confidence to challenge. That is on personal side, but I think on technical side, we can also look at adopting integrating two-factor authentication to authenticate identities during critical communication, like the webinar we are having today, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
we are not will not request you to transfer 25 million, by the way, but there should be additional checks to ensure that identities we have on the call are actually genuine and we can trust them. Luca also made a very important and good point of having tools. Now tools are being developed which can actually help us discriminate between a genuine message or deepfake. But we may also want to develop some specific protocols to quickly verify the content that is published out there and to counter misinformation. Luca made a very good point about misinformation and how it can damage the reputation of an organization. And that's why it's very important that we, as third line of defense, suggest and make observation if there are no processes available, that we should have a specific protocols to deal with any misinformation incident. How do we verify the content? How do we counter the misinformation? How do we share that information with public, engaging legal or through public relations team to address any potential reputational damage? So that's very important as well. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right to actually stress that there's both the control and the two-factor authentication, even happening in conference like this one. But hopefully no one is fake here. Hopefully I'm not fake at all. And also the issue of missing.
If I can add just a note on that, I think it's important to remember, because we keep talking about tools, about technology, but when we go back to social engineering, to the deep fakes, I think, the people component becomes central, right? So we remember then how human is important in this whole scheme and how awareness and training become very central in our cybersecurity program. So I think, that was, just a note.
Yeah, you're quite right. Actually, staying with you, Daniel, on the issue of human resource, and we just see right now that indeed this is a big issue to make sure that the whole population within companies is properly vigilant, to use the word of Deepinder, with regards to those elements of of fake connections or misinformation, as mentioned Luca. But if we perhaps expand a little bit that issue of human resource, which, by the way, is also one of the main 5 topics today in the Risk in Focus 2025. Is there something else we can say about the importance of human resource today for cybersecurity? The question to you, Daniel.
Sure. I mean, it's a question very dear to me since I am in Landis & Gyr. I struggle to build and find, a strong team on the IT front. I think it's a very critical topic at the moment. The problem is that, we see a very, rapid increase on cybersecurity threats, sophistication volumes. But obviously there is a lack or a short market for skilled professionals, especially if we look for very specialized skills. In my case, I need people with cloud security skills, or if I look at the future, AI or penetration testing, and there is a very limited offer in the market. There is a very high demand and very limited offer. This also, brings up salaries. So it's a very challenging market. That also pose, retention challenges. Obviously, the few people you have in your team might be stressed out, might be working long hours, and then makes also more difficult to retain, your existing staff. We discussed, obviously outsourcing is a strategy, probably is a way to go, especially for specialized technical expertise. But this, obviously adds pressure of cost and budget, especially for small teams like mine. Outsourcing completely the IT audit plan, might be very, very costly. The options I think we all look at is upskilling, our teams, going through trainings, certifications, Also for generalists, I think it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning of the discussion. Each audit has a component of IT or a component of cyber. So also business auditors, financial auditors need to be able to cover certain aspects of IT audits, of cyber audits, or at least go in the direction of personal development. And the other aspect to be considered is the automation. How can we use AI and machine learning to be more efficient, maybe to reduce, the time we spend on routine tasks, on testing, financial controls, and then we can spend more budget and resources into cybersecurity.
So indeed, if we can look out for external, that's good, but at any rate, upskilling, as you mentioned, and then even have most of the generalist, even members to have a sense, a bit of a generalist knowledge, right, of cybersecurity, and then even use actually AI, you just mentioned, to better automate some of the tasks, even for the auditors, right?
Yeah, correct. I think, we all started the journey with data analytics, and then I think now we are trying to look at the table. How do we combine robotics, data analytics? How do we bring it to the next level with AI? And then the team can really focus on more value-add activities or more strategic tasks. And cybersecurity is certainly one of these.
Now, that's very interesting. Thanks, Naya. I don't know if anyone wanted to add on that point of the issue of human resource.
Yeah, maybe to add on this, fully agree with what Daniele was saying, and maybe one extra point on this mix of resources, or this optimization of the workload, or the way we automate and so on. Coming back to the external expertise that we might want to add to our teams, I think the main point is that we really need to make sure that we have a minimum knowledge on the subject inside our teams. That's really important. Not only because, as we were just mentioning before, it can be very costly to outsource, but also because the specific understanding of the company context is required to make sure that we assess properly the risk in the context of the company, to make sure we do the right audits, even on cybersecurity, that we assess properly the criticality of the vulnerabilities that were found. This cannot be done with superficial knowledge of the company. It really requires that we have this understanding, and that we spend some time to understand what is the real impact of this or that vulnerability that we find through our audits.
Okay, very clear, Valerie. I would highlight what you say in terms of all having a minimal knowledge that needs to be defined, but indeed. Actually, keeping with you, Valerie, if we switched into the issue of, and we mentioned a little bit of that when we're dealing with outsourcing, and we've expanded in terms of now any companies kind of work into a network, and any company in a way has become a sort of networked company, a networked enterprise. And so we also mentioned actually AI systems, chatbots that are not developed but necessarily by the company and so forth. We could mention also the revolution of the public cloud that has been accelerating over the last 5 years. Wanted to have your views and then explain to the rest of the panel, evidently, on how do we deal with that new challenge of that networked enterprise, and how evidently the auditors need to supervise, make the assurance control that indeed we become this networked enterprise in the right way.
So yeah, that's a real issue, because the cybersecurity landscape is becoming really more and more complex, and I think one of the big challenges that we have is to keep or to maintain an up-to-date and exhaustive understanding of the whole ecosystem that we have, and how well it complies to security requirements. So I think this is really a challenge, because also things move fast. We have seen in many cases that attacks were coming from the supply chain, that we really need to control the way our environment is secured. But of course, we can do that with proper due diligence, with contractual requirements. But I think the main point is really the challenge is to keep this up to date, to keep end-to-end view of the situation and maintain this up to date. I think this is probably a very difficult, very difficult point.
Right, to have the whole view of the whole
Yep.
network, basically of suppliers and partners and IT suppliers also that is participating with the activity of the company, right?
Yes, and not only IT, because we always think IT suppliers, but we also need to think other types of suppliers that might impact our cybersecurity level. I would think, for instance, to things such as people who provide automates in plants or things like this, which are not considered completely part of the IT providers, but then might have a critical impact on our security. So it's really important to have a full view of the situation.
Right, the full view and expand a bit the view of where does the cybersecurity main issue could happen indeed. I don't know if maybe Luca or Deepinder, the additional things you wanted to add on that, that issue of having this networked enterprise that actually we need to secure.
I perfectly agreed with what it was said before, because I think that now there is an ecosystem. So you have to ensure that the whole ecosystem is protected. And sometimes it's very difficult to keep up to date, all the systems involved and all the outsourcers and the companies that are involved in the ecosystem. So, so you have to be updated about what's happening in the company, new businesses, new sourcer or new provider, and then understand if all this ecosystem is well protected, because sometimes the business start, doing something, launching a new product. I know that there is maybe a new product approval process, but sometimes happening that for market contingency, they go faster than the audit department. And so you need to catch up with the stakeholders to understand what is happening in the company, and ensure that all the ecosystems is well preserved. So it means to ascertain that all the connections are well protected, the data are inside, and so on. So this is what is important.
Get it? Yeah, to really and to investigate to some levels actually those members of the ecosystem as much as you have time for, and you can do it evidently, but to check that. Indeed. I don't know if Deepinder, you wanted to add on this issue of this networked environment for companies.
Yeah, I think Luca and Valerie covered it very well, but I'd just like to add another aspect is that, as an auditor, certainly we will always be behind the curve. So main thing is to make sure, I think Luca and Valerie made a point, is to make sure that we have good governance process on third-party supply chain, right? If we have governance, we have procurement department engage on this, it is starting point. That means at the planning and scoping phase or due diligence phase, we will make sure that right partner is selected. And once you're selected, it's basically managing the life cycle of the partner, right? It's from onboarding to making sure we manage the relationship, we provide the oversight based on risk, and then we also make sure when we offboard them, we have a good transition plan so that we don't have any disruption to the business. And Valerie made a very good point. It's not about just IT service providers. It's much more wider. It's about supply chain. You may remember the challenge we have with Suez Canal when the shipment was stopped and how it disrupted the whole supply chain. Last but not least, very quickly, I think it's important that also we take cognizance of the software supply chain. We are using more and more third-party libraries. Log4j disruption bring it to the fore, and it is very important for us to have something like software composition analysis that builds a comprehensive view of software components that are being used in our software applications. It's important more than ever now to have a software bill of material to make sure that we have a list of dependencies in our risk register to track any publicly announced vulnerabilities that may come to the fore, right? To manage that risk associated with the fast DevOps model agile model we are using for software, and using more and more libraries from different providers. So thank you very much.
Now, very clear, again, stressing the life cycle from onboarding, transition phase. Maybe we can add also the element of contracting, making sure that all that, and that's part of good governance, evidently. And you're quite right to focus on also the software supply chain, which includes the element of software component analysis, very critical. Thanks for all those great points, and thanks evidently for Luca and Valerie on that. Switching to maybe our last main question, and then we'll open up to any other questions from Slido if we have some. Otherwise, we'll have still tons of questions. But as we discussed about those elements of this network company, evidently there is an additional element here of using suppliers of softwares, actually, which relates to the geopolitical threat. And that, of course, opens up to the wider issue of geopolitical threat today. And I would stress on the today element. I don't know if Daniel, you had a few words to talk about that, but then evidently open to the rest of the panel.
Sure. Certainly, we observe, an increase of, cyber events due to geopolitical tensions. So where we have activists, other actors, which leverage these cyber attacks to achieve their objectives. In certain geographies, obviously, there's been a clear increase of number of cyber attacks. We have seen, recently in the conflict, Ukraine, Russia, Ukraine. And I think we spoke during the roundtable about certain countries entering NATO's or with, higher geopolitical activities, in particular, some of the Nordic countries where, cyber attacks were perceived as higher. So certainly there is the need to raise the guard, and how can we do that? Certainly, I think, one aspect to be considered is putting geopolitical aspects as part of the risk assessment, and then, into the cybersecurity planning, looking at it in terms of supply chain security, so looking at third-party vendors, to minimize vulnerabilities in this field. And last but not least, also looking at, threat intelligence sharing, so working as part of industry groups and government entities to stay informed about what is happening in terms of geopolitical risks.
Right, very important point indeed, that stay informed and getting the info, that's critical. Thanks for all those points, Daniela. I think they are very important, especially today, nowadays. Before we quickly move to the two Slido questions that we have, I don't know if either Valerie or Luca or Deepinder, you had a few words to add on that topic of geopolitical risk.
Yeah, if I may. So I think, to be honest, it was very well covered. But one thing I would like to say is that, again, highlighting the geopolitical situation that has worsened in the last few months. 2 days ago, Work and Pension Secretary Liz Kendall said that NATO countries are involved in hidden cyber war with Russia. And just 22 hours ago, Admiral Rob Barr, which is chair of NATO Military Committee, who previously warned us that we should be prepared to be mobilized, said that businesses should need to prepare for wartime scenarios. And news are coming in. I was looking at on today, early today, and that NATO countries actually are mobile, practicing the scenarios to mobilize the troops. But it's not only that. The Admiral Rob Wire was referring to businesses, the organization to prepare for wartime scenarios. And we need to rethink our strategy, how we outsource, and what will happen if some of the countries where we are outsourcing are involved in geopolitical tensions.
Right. Well, thanks, Deepinder. I think very, very timely and very sobering, but very important element of information just shared. For the last remaining 5 minutes or so, we'll just pick up some of the questions coming from Slido. So the first one, what are the main obstacles that you see regarding the use of AI by internal auditors? Again, what the main obstacle that you see regarding the use of AI by internal auditors? I don't know who wants to take that
Maybe
one.
I can start if you want.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
main obstacles are about the skills. So I mean, we are talking about professional skills, and the fact that in the market it's quite difficult to find expert on AI, especially talent people that wants to join the audit department. So I think that, as we said before, there is, I mean, everyone is looking for expert on AI, especially maybe audit is not so sexy like maybe other departments. And so it's quite difficult to to keep talent inside the audit department, but also to convince the new talent to join our audit team. So this is the big challenge that we face.
Okay, the issue of skill indeed, but needs to be dealt with. By the way, could also be dealt with AI itself, which can be a fantastic virtual tutor on any topics, including that one. There's another question. So this is right now is the top rating question I see on Slido. Kind of a technical question, but it's an important one. Do you see any value added in separating IT from OT, operational technology, which being used, say, deep down in the production plant or whatnot? I don't know who wants to take that one. Maybe Valerie, because
Yes,
of
maybe
Renaud?
I can take this one. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that we have different. We have to have a different perspective because in OT you might have more difficulties in maintaining, in managing obsolescence. In plants, you have equipments that can be several years, several tens of years old. And so the way to deal with this is necessarily different from the way we deal with IT, and probably put more focus on network segregation, for instance, this kind of thing. So I would say yes, I see a value because the problematics are not the same.
Okay, very clear. Last one, and then we'll switch into a quick one because it's top now. For small audit teams which do not have a resource for full-time IT auditor, what would be the best rules for upskilling generalist auditors, which is just mentioned? I don't know if any one of you in the panel has a few ideas on how we can quickly upskill generalist auditors.
I can start because I have a small team. So few thoughts. What I started here since I joined is a guest auditor program. So it's it's not resource intensive. So you would pick up subject matter expert from the business and bring them with you on the audit. And I think that's highly valuable, especially on the IT, on the cyber field, where you get a very qualified technical person from the business, and then your team can shadow during the audit. This is one. Obviously, there are a set of trainings out there. Certification, CISA is one of the most popular. But I think the use of second line of defense and subject matter expert is certainly a cost-effective solution.
Very clear. Okay, well, again, we're getting to the end of our webinar. Thanks again, Valerie, Deepinder, Daniele, Luca. It's been a great conversation. I think we should switch to, there's a slide on CPE, right. for the CP certificate, and you can get, if you want to add this CP request, you can just QR code what you see on the screen. Meanwhile, again, Valérie, Dipinder, Danielier, Luca, thanks a lot for this fascinating conversation on this, what is today still the #1 risk for companies, and the one main topic of concern and interest for auditors and internal controllers, which is cybersecurity. And so whoever was participant on that webinar, you did the right choice, because indeed it's the one main topic coming out of Risk in Focus 2025. Again, thanks to you all, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.